Welcome to another Tommy Emmanuel tutorial. Today we'll be taking a look at Close to You, Tommy's arrangement of the classic Burt Bacharach song. Now, before we continue, a few quick pointers on the guitar. The guitar is in standard tuning. There's no need for a thumb pick or a flat pick. It's just traditional fingerstyle all the way through. But you might notice one difference if you compare my guitar to Tommy's guitar. Namely, I'm not using a capo at the moment. Tommy uses a capo on the 2nd fret, and this makes a few of the larger chord shapes a lot easier, but teaching this song is actually harder with the capo on the guitar because there are so many position shifts, 7th fret, 9th fret, even 11th fret, that using a capo actually makes it difficult to properly explain every single position, because in the back of your head you always have to add up 2 extra frets. So that's why I left out the capo for this tutorial, just to make everything as clear as possible. When you get the piece down, it shouldn't be too difficult to just add the capo on the 2nd fret and play the song 2 frets up. But for the sake of the explanation and for the sake of clarity, I'm leaving it out right now. So that's all there is to know. Just a quick pointer, this is the very first day of spring here in Europe. It's beautiful weather. I worked in the garden. I'm sunburned. I cut my finger while working in gardening. And I'm doing this tutorial with the window open. So if you hear a lawnmower or some birds in the background, that's just the neighbors doing their business. So enough chit chat. Let's get straight to work and get into the intro. Here we go. One time, and then I'll come back for the explanation. Didn't you wish that all of Tommy's intros were as simple as this one? It's not difficult at all. Let's take a look. You're starting out with a B chord on the 7th fret. I'm saying 7th fret, you are working from the 7th position, but you are actually not playing the 7th fret right away. Ring finger, 9th fret on the D string, middle finger, 8th fret on the G string, and the pinky on the 9th fret of the high E string. In between there is a open B string, and you are playing it just open. So you can prepare as well for the 2nd voicing, and that is by putting down the index finger on the 7th fret of the high E string as well. So this is the 1st chord, and this is the 2nd chord without the pinky. The way you play this rhythmically is quite simple. Thumb for the bass note, and then using the index finger, middle finger and ring finger at the same time to play the chord. And that's the only little fill. What's happening is you're playing the chord voicing with the index finger on the 7th fret, adding in the pinky again, playing the full chord, and pulling off with the pinky without striking the rest of the chord again. That's all there is to it. And we're ending the intro with a natural harmonic on the 7th fret, on the B string and the E string at the same time. A little double stop harmonic. One more time, really slowly, and then it's into the 1st verse. And then we're heading into the 1st verse. Now, there is a lot of repetition going on in this song, and as you will see, the very 1st verse comes back 2 or 3 times, and there's not really that much that changes. So there's not that much of music to get into your fingers before you can play the whole song. Let me play it one time for you, and then I'm going to come back yet again and give you the explanation. That's the 1st verse. Now, straight off, when you're heading into the melody, there is a bit of a sneaky little trick Tommy's using. You're starting out with 2nd fret on the A string, 1st fret on the D string, and 1st fret on the B string. Both of those 1st frets are played with a little bar with the index finger. Now you might expect to play this note with the middle finger, which would be the logical thing to do, but take it from me, you rather would like to play this with the ring finger. Now this is a strange fingering, but when we slide up, we're not staying in the exact same shape. We're sliding up from this shape to the 4th fret, this shape. And now you can see there is 1 fret in between here. So you're sliding with the index finger from the 1st fret to the 4th fret, and you're sliding with the ring finger from the 2nd fret to the 6th fret. So no space in between the index finger and the ring finger, 1 fret in between those two. So that's why I find it easier to play it like this instead of doing this. The stretch between the index finger and the middle finger feels very, very awkward. So I would suggest starting out with the bar chord with the index finger and then the ring finger for the lower sounding note. And then straight into an E major 9th chord. Now this chord shape is actually one of the few chord shapes that's probably something, chord shape that Tommy found to play the melody easily on top of the chord shape, because this is not a really often used chord shape, but everything else in the verse actually is. So most of the other chords are based around open chords or well-known bar chord shapes. So the very first chord shape is middle finger on the 6th fret of the D string, ring finger 6th fret on the G string, pinky on the 7th fret of the B string, and the index finger on the high E string. And the pinky in the beginning right away is the melody note. There are two things I would like to put some extra attention to. Tommy sometimes uses his boom chick or his alternating thumb technique, but he doesn't really do it in his traditional percussive way with the muting. He is alternating with the thumb whenever possible, but instead of really hitting that higher note, he often does a very soft strum in the chord. So that second chord in between there, and it's slightly brushing with the side of the thumb. Now this is hard to notate in the tablature because there's not really a right tool to indicate what note should be louder and what note should be softer, but I'll try and explain it along the tablature, along the tutorial, sorry, that whenever you have to do this soft strum, it's more meant as an effect. So don't really focus on what exact string to play. Don't focus, for instance, in this point in the tablature, you can see that you have to play the 6th fret on the D string and the G string, but don't worry if you add in that 7th fret with the pinky as well, or maybe even the 4th fret on top. It's just a really soft strum meant to keep the rhythmic momentum going, but don't really put too much thought into it about what strings or what harmony you're playing at that point. Now that little melody part might be confusing if you're new to this style of playing, because you are playing an F sharp on the 7th fret, then you're moving down to the E string, but to an open E string. So this means that you are moving down to a thinner string. The back of your mind will probably tell you we're going up to a higher sounding note, while this is actually a lower sounding note on the next string. And then you're adding in the 4th fret. So 7th fret B string, open E string, 7th fret B string, 4th fret E string. rhythm in this particular part is also something that only happens the very first time. You're playing 2 8 notes and then a triplet. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the last melody note actually lands in front of the first beat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. This only happens the very first time. Second time around, you will notice that this last melody note, the D sharp, 4th fret on the B string, actually lands on the first beat. And then we're adding in the next bass note. The next chord shape is a D sharp dominant 7th chord, starting out as a sus4 voicing, then moving over to a dominant 7th voicing. What happens is you're playing middle finger on the 6th fret of the low E string, ring finger on the 6th fret of the D string, pinky 6th fret on the G string, and the index finger on the 4th fret of the B string. When you move over to the 2nd voicing, the ring finger and the middle finger actually have to swap strings. So what happens is when you move over from the sus chord to the dominant 7th chord, the middle finger and the ring finger swap strings. So the ring finger will take the exact same note the middle finger is playing, and then the middle finger will move over to the 5th fret on the D string. So moving from a sus chord to a dominant 7th chord. And that move might be a bit tricky in the beginning. Don't forget to keep down the little bar on top as well to keep the melody line going. Continuing with the melody. So the melody line you're playing is 4th fret with the index finger on the B string, 7th fret with the pinky, and then to the 6th fret on the high E string. Now you might be tempted to do this, go to the ring finger, don't do that. Switch over right away to a full bar to play the next chord in line. So straight to a bar across the 6th fret. This part is what I thought was hardest the first time I learned this song, is you're moving from a D sharp minor chord to D sharp minor major 7th to D sharp minor 7th. Now there's two ways to do this. Tommy plays this from the pinky to the middle finger, and then he switches around to a full D sharp minor 7th chord with the ring finger on the 8th fret of the D string. This is also how I picked it up when I learned the song from the video, but there is an easier way because he's not actually playing this 8th fret on the D string, so there is also not really a need to fret that note as well, and it actually makes the fingering a bit easier because you can play this and just end up on the bar chord without having to swap out the ring finger to the middle finger. It works just as fine, so there's no need to swap over to the full D sharp minor chord. So this is the first option, the way Tommy plays it, to the full D sharp minor chord, or you can just play it. But then remember, you have to use the pinky again for the next melody line. If you're using this chord shape, it's exactly the same. It's just the pinky to the middle finger on the 7th fret, it's already there, and then sliding up from the 6th fret to the 7th fret with the pinky. So this is quite a large position shift that goes by really quickly. So we're moving from a D sharp minor chord to a G sharp minor chord. Pinky, and then laying down the full bar chord on the 4th fret. Tommy plays this fill different every single time, so you can fool around with it, but the basic of the fill is you're starting out on a G sharp minor chord with a major 7th, 5th fret middle finger, hammering on to the 6th fret on the same string to resolve the tension in a simple G sharp minor chord, sorry, G sharp minor. And you can end with one of those soft strums again. See? So. Then moving over to a wide chord. Now this is one of those chord shapes that will actually be easier if you put the capo on the 2nd fret. An E major chord with an added 9th with the pinky. So you're playing open string, 2nd fret with the middle finger, 4th fret with the pinky, 1st fret with the index finger. This in itself is a chord shape that pops up quite regularly, but now you're going to, if you want to play it exactly the same way as Tommy, use an embellishment on the 1st fret. And that might take some work. Again, this is easier with the capo on the 2nd fret, but for purposes already stated in the intro, we're leaving that out at the moment. So hammering on to the 1st fret, open B string, and then we're moving to the same chord we used in the beginning, but we're only leaving out the 4th fret on the high E string. We just don't need it at the moment. To an open E string, and another one of those soft strums. So that's the basic idea. Second time around, exactly the same thing. Now we are playing the 4th fret with the index finger, ending up on exactly the same chord as we used in the first bar. And this little fill only pops in the very first time. The 2nd, 3rd time, 4th time around, it's going to be something different. So those 2 bars back to back. So those 3 melody notes you play are actually played in front of the beat. So make sure internally you keep very good time. So count in the back of your head if you need to. And this is the timing if you would count along. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's where you have to put down those melody notes. And that last chordal fill is maybe the hardest thing in the whole song. A bar across the 4th fret, you don't have to bar all the way across the neck. You can leave out the low E string, sorry. So you're moving all the way up to the 5th string. Ring finger on the 7th fret of the low E string. And then you're playing all the way to the pinky as well on the 7th fret on the B string. And as if this chord shape isn't hard enough, then all the way at the end, after you played the note that sounds out on the 7th fret of the B string, the F sharp, you will hammer on with the middle finger to the 6th fret on the low A string. That means that the rest of the chord has to sound out all the way through. So really slowly. So that's the chordal fill. So make make sure this whole chord shape rings out nicely and evenly. Again, this is easier with the capo on the 2nd fret. All the frets end up a little bit closer together, a little bit less tension on the guitar, but down here on the 4th fret and 7th fret, this is actually a painful chord shape. But the good news is you basically got the whole verse down now. So the verse will pop up a few more times, but only the end is something different. There are a few little variations going on in between the different verses, but I'll address those as we pass them by. So let me play this verse one more time really slowly, then I'm going to continue into the next verse and show you the embellishments or the variations on the places where they pop up. Here we go, one time really slowly. The whole first verse. Now let me continue. I will play the 2nd verse for you, a bit more up to tempo, and I'm gonna come back and explain the variations where they pop up. Here we go. So that was the 2nd verse. As you see, most of the chord shapes, most of the melodies actually maintained. So I'm going to go over it quickly and show you the few embellishments and the few variations present. So we're starting out. Same melody. And as I promised during the 1st verse, the only thing that changes now is that triplet feel that we saw in the 1st verse is gone now. So the D sharp, the 4th fret on the B string actually lands nicely on the beat now, along with the next chord. So as you can see, the melody note and the bass note are landing at the same time. Everything else is exactly the same. Little melody variation, 9th fret with the pinky pulling off to the 6th fret and then moving down again and sliding up with the pinky to the 7th fret in order to, yet again, play this G sharp minor chord. Same fill, same chord shapes, and now the turnaround going into the chorus. So you're playing a B major 9th chord with D sharp down below in the bass. So you get a bar on the 6th fret, 6th fret and 9th fret with the pinky on the D string. Again, 6th fret with the bar on the G string. Middle finger, 7th fret on the B string. And again, the 6th fret with the bar on the high E. First chord, you're playing the thumb on the D sharp and then with the index finger, middle finger and ring finger, the top 3 strings. And then for the next chord, you're just moving down those fingers, one set of strings, and you're playing the D string, G string and B string. Chord shape stays exactly the same. 2. A bit of a dissonant sounding chord. Index finger, 2nd fret on the A string, 4th fret with the ring finger on the D string, an open G string, and this clashes with that F sharp. That F sharp and that G are rubbing shoulders with each other, so this is a bit of a harsh sound. And then adding in the pinky on the 4th fret of the B string. So this is You could, it's basically a B chord with a flattened 13 in between, down there, moving to a G sharp with the index finger on the G string, removing some of that harshness, but you're also dropping out that F sharp. The pinky stays where he is. The middle finger will take the bass note instead of the index finger, and the index finger will move to the first fret on the G string. Open E string to the D sharp on the 4th fret again, and then to an A chord with a B bass note. Yet again, these are large chord shapes. They are easier if you put the capo on the 2nd fret. Full chord section. One more time, this section of the verse, and then we're moving into the chorus. And then into the chorus. There we are, that's the whole chorus. Let's have a look. So we're starting out with an E major 7th chord. 1st fret with the index finger on the B string, 2nd fret with the middle finger on the G string. Then we're swapping places. Index finger will go to the 1st fret on the G string, and we are adding the ring finger and the pinky both on the 2nd fret, ring finger on the D string, pinky on the B string. And then we're moving that chord shape up 2 frets, but the index finger will remain at the 1st fret. So up 2 frets, index finger stays where it is, and back down 2 frets. So the bass line isn't of any particular interest now. The first time around, Tommy plays a long E bass note and then starts pumping the bass as he progresses throughout the chorus. The second time, it's a bit different. He plays a few short bass notes, then a longer one, then a few shorter ones. I don't think this is something that is particularly written out or particularly arranged, so you can be a bit freer in your interpretation in this part. Playing this 2 times, exactly the same melody. And then the second time, ending on a pull-off with a middle finger from the 2nd fret on the B string to an open string. Moving to the same D sharp minor 7th chord we already used a few times. Adding the pinky on the 9th fret of the B string for the melody. Changing around the thumb to the 5th in the bass, so that doesn't really happen that often during this song. So G dominant to G sharp dominant, and then a long and winding run with a low E bass note yet again, moving through a set of different voicings for an E chord. So we're starting out with E major 7th, 1st fret, 1st finger, index finger, 7th fret on the high E string, middle finger 9th fret on the B string, pinky 11th fret on the G string. This high up the neck, this chord shouldn't actually pose that much difficulty, and it gets even easier with the capo on the 2nd fret. On the 9th fret, if you move it up, it's not that hard to play, despite the fact that it's quite a wide chord grip. Then to a plain E chord, you could recognize this coming from this chord shape. Going to E major 7th, with the middle finger on the 8th fret on the G string, and then moving over to E with the 6th degree added in, and then you have to swap over again. The middle finger will have to take over from the index finger, and the index finger will jump to the 6th fret on the G string. So E major 9th to E major 7th, and then swapping around, going to the E 6th chord. Melody note all the way through. That's the melody. So that's the very first place in this whole run where the melody actually changes. You're already playing the 9th fret with the pinky, drop down a little bar with the index finger, so you can play the 6th fret on the high E string, and then add in the middle finger again for the 7th fret, ending back up on the same chord shape. So that's the melody line. Full run. And then the showstopper of the song. A little run. You can name this in a few different, you can put a few different names on this. I think of it as a little F-sharp altered run. So you're starting with the pinky on the 9th fret, pulling off to the 6th fret, where the index finger is playing the note, 8th fret on the B string with the ring finger, and then pinky again on the 9th fret on the G string. And then quickly moving over to the 2nd position, pulling off, index finger, 2nd fret, pulling off to the open string, again the index finger on the B string from the 2nd fret, pulling off to the open string. And then, very important to keep all these notes ringing out, middle finger on the 3rd fret of the G string, pinky 4th fret on the D string, ring finger 4th fret on the A string, open E string, hammering on with the index finger to the 2nd fret. And it's very important to try and keep as much of these notes ringing out. Also those top strings where you're pulling off to, so make sure you don't accidentally hit any notes with the left hand while going through this run. That should be the effect you get. As soon as you end up on those bass notes, those top strings should still be ringing out, and they give this chord a beautiful resonance. It's really an incredible find, and it sounds amazing if you pull it off with every single note still ringing out, with the little melody part or the little pull-off part on top. So that's the whole run. Ending up on this open sounding chord. Again, the distance is a bit reduced with the capo on the 2nd fret, and the fingering becomes a bit easier, but the focus on letting everything ring out should be exactly the same, playing it with a capo or without a capo. So one more time, the chorus, because this is where we conclude it. One more time, the chorus, and then we're off to the next part of the verse. next verse. Now, up until this point, you basically can play the whole song. The third verse isn't anything different from the second verse, but you can start playing around with the different variations. And as you will see, the second chorus is identical to the first chorus, except for one very, very tiny variation. Here we go. Third verse, a bit more up to tempo. Forgot about that. One little different, little different thing, one fill that is actually added in the chord section. And now instead of going up to the open E string, we're playing a bar at the 3rd fret, moving chromatically down to the 2nd fret. And this is something that you can use next time. We're going to play this part a few different times at the ending of the song, and this is a fill you can actually add in anytime you like. To the chorus section. And that was the fill. That was the very little fill I talked about. Going to this chord, playing an open E string, and then going back to the 2nd fret. That's the only fill. The rest of the second chorus is exactly the same as the first time. That last pull-off fill was exactly the same thing, but there was one sneaky little thing that was changed in the chord section on the E chord. Did you notice it? Tommy moves the bass note away from the first beat. The second time around he plays it. So what he's doing the first time is he's always playing the low E bass note on the 1st and 3rd beat of the bar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's what he's doing the first time. Second time around, he's going to move away the bass note from the first beat. This takes some rhythmic sense in that fact that most people will actually move their sense of timing to the place where the bass note is. So make sure that you keep counting. That first melody note is actually on the beat, and then the bass note will actually be played behind the beat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. So in the last time it's actually on the beat, but that's what he does in the first 3 chords. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. So the last time it's on the beat. So if you aim for the bass note to be played along with the second melody note, you should be fine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it's the same pull-off lick. A bit more up to speed, this is what it sounds like. So. One more time with counting along. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Next verse. And as you probably noticed, I'm starting to play around with the variations. So I used the triplet from the very first verse. I used a melodic variation from the second verse, and I use the chromatic variation also from the second verse, and you can start playing around with all those different motives you got by now. There is not really a right or a wrong way to play this, just use your imagination. If you want to play it exactly the same every single time, then go ahead, there's nothing wrong with that, but you can start playing along as well. Now we're coming up to the closing section, which is, I think, actually the hardest section of the song. So we're just done playing this final section. And we play it again. Ending up on a long chord. Pause for dramatic effect, as long as you like, and then it's back to... And this is not something, a little trick I'm doing right now. This is actually needed to change to the chords for the ending section. So you're playing the bar at the second fret, moving up, and you're going to hit on the fourth beat, hit the strings with the right hand, so you got a little bit extra time moving to those closing chords, because they aren't easy at all. This is where the real pain for the left hand is coming. So let me play through the ending section one time, and then I'm gonna come back and I will provide you with some alternative fingerings, because there are a few really difficult chords in this section. Here we go. Now, I can imagine left hand cramps coming in only from watching a few of those chord shapes. So let's go over them. We're starting out with the same chord shape we already used during the chorus section as well. 7th fret, high E string, index finger, middle finger, 9th fret, pinky on the 11th fret. Moving over to a much easier D chord shape on the 6th fret. So imagine playing a D chord, but on the sixth fret instead of on the 2nd fret. Hammering on and pulling off again on the high E string. So 6th fret on top with the middle finger, hammering on to the 7th fret with the pinky and pulling back off to the 6th fret. And then the real killer of the ending section is this one. Beautiful voicing, don't get me wrong. So this is a piano-like voicing with a few really close voiced notes really closely together, and that hurts on guitar, it always does. So what you get is pinky on the 8th fret on the G string, middle finger on the 5th fret of the B string, and these are only separated by a half step, so they kind of clash together. And then we are not done yet, the index finger on the 4th fret of the high E string. It's a beautiful chord, no doubt about it. But for people with smaller hands, even with the capo on the guitar, 2 frets up, this is going to hurt like crazy. So why not look for an alternative? And the alternative is ridiculously easy. So this is, as I already might have mentioned, an E major 7th chord. What's an alternative fingering for an E major 7th chord? This. Just a bar across the 4th fret is exactly the same chord without all the pain in the left hand. Now don't get me wrong, this actually sounds beautiful within the song. There's a reason why Tommy plays it this way. It's got a lot of charm, this chord, but it also has a lot of left hand cramps for most people. So for people who want to play the whole song and don't feel like breaking their fingers on this chord, a bar chord across the 4th fret works just as well. With the original fingering, this part. Now with the alternative fingering. Maybe add in the variation. Much easier, and it sounds okay. The melody note is still on top, the melody note is still clear, but you're not stuck with this chord shape. So as always, if you find the extra charm of that really close voiced chord worth the effort to chase that, then by all means go ahead. If you want to do this, I want to leave you with this pointer. The easiest way to transfer to that chord is by putting down the pinky first and then leaning sideways towards the notes you have to play with the index and middle finger. Don't start from the index finger building up and then trying to stretch with the pinky all the way there. You will lose a lot of time, and most of the time you will end up muting the top strings by placing the pinky too flat. So coming from that F sharp, from that D chord shaped F sharp chord, pinky first and then dropping down to the middle finger and the index finger. There you go. And now onto the ending chord. The first time around you're pumping the E bass string again. It's not a tight pattern, it's not always the same, so you can sort of put some variations in it. So what I'm usually doing is I'm playing sort of a swing pattern in the bass note, pum, 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 all the way through. But when something is happening on top, I'm leaving it out. And now to the end chord. No more pumping on the bass note. Alternative fingering or the original fingering. Let me play the original fingering. And then moving this chord shape down to the 3rd fret. And then now have a good look at this. Now you're playing the exact same chord shape up here, down 3 frets, and now you're adding in with the ring finger on the 4th fret the A flat bass note and playing the 3rd fret on top to get the ending chord. Ouch, this hurts. So this is an incredibly difficult chord. I get a lot of string buzz whenever I try it. I really have to take extremely good care of my posture. Tommy plays this as if it's nothing. This is one of the most difficult chords I've ever found in one of his songs. So sliding down to the 3rd fret, adding in the 4th fret with the ring finger, and then playing with the bar chord down here, the 3rd fret on top. Again, a beautiful chord, but after playing this whole song, you're probably going to need a lot of recovery for the left hand. Now, there is an alternative as well for that last chord, and it actually, it's sort of a double win. It involves a very easy, but to non-guitar players, a very cool looking technique. It looks very difficult, while all you're doing is actually taking the easiest way out. You're moving this chord down. You're going to tap with the index finger on the 4th fret of the low E string, going to tap in the bass note. Couldn't be easier. So this now becomes a really easy chord. And to add in some extra flair, you can even tap in and then use the ring finger or the pinky to strum, lightly strum that 3rd fret that you normally played down here above the sound hole, and just really, really softly strum. Take that all together. And there you go. That's exactly the same thing that Tommy plays. It looks as if you're doing the most complicated stuff while you're actually taking very, very much the easy way out. This is a lot easier than adding in that ring finger, especially if your hands are a bit smaller. So there you go. Easy easy as can be, hammering on with the index finger to the 4th fret and then strumming lightly across the strings while holding down the chord. There you go. Anyway, one more time, the ending section, and then we're done for today. Alternative fingering. Original fingering. Variation. Last time, no bass notes. Any chord. So there you go. That's close to you from start to finish. Have fun with this one, and I'll see you next time. Check back soon for another Tommy Emmanuel tutorial. Take care and bye bye.